The case started in Juneau, Alaska. The case wasn't decided until June of 2007. It was an outdoor event during the 2002 Olympics during school hours. There were teachers supervising the kids. Joseph Frederick held a sign that said "Bong Hits for Jesus." His principal, Deborah Morse, said that the sign promoted drugs and should be taken down. Joseph was one of the kids that was holding the sign and took the blame and said no to taking down the sign. He was suspended for 10 days. School board upheld the suspension, and then Frederick sued, claiming his First Amendment rights were violated for making him take the poster down. The United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit Court found that Morse had violated Frederick's First Amendment rights. Therefore, what Morse did was unconstitutional. The school board then brought it to the Supreme Court, where it was found in Morse's favor and that Frederick was trying to promote drugs to kids, not a violation of First Amendment rights. The people involved were Joseph Frederick, a student, the plaintiff, and Deborah Morse, the principal, the defendant. Frederick claimed that he was only trying to be funny and was not trying to promote drugs, and thought that his First Amendment rights were violated because he was asked to take down the sign. The case grabbed national attention because the sign was put up during the movement of the torch for the Olympics that was broadcast on the news. It was also the fact that the sign had to do with drugs. Drugs and minors are a big problem in America. It also deals with the freedom of speech being violated. And lastly, it deals with public schools. The people that were affected were, first of all, the students. Also, the teachers and other people that work at schools were also affected. It shows that as students you do have rights, but that the teachers and other people that work at the school have the authority over minors, and if they believe that if it breaks the school rules, then they can ask you to take down or off the item that is breaking the rules. The impact. The decision affected the First Amendment because it showed that minors do not have the complete rights of the First Amendment, and that if what the student is doing does not follow the policy of the school, then the school faculty can do something about it, and if the students say no to that, then the faculty can treat the student from there as they would any other kid that has broken the law. Another part of the impact is that kids that go to school actually went to the Supreme Court building to protest for their freedom of speech. The kids made their own signs, and they also made shirts to say what the kids of today and the leaders of tomorrow think of their rights to freedom of speech. So it made an impact on the kids then as to what they think for later in life, and how the kids now will plan on running their government when their turn comes.
As the symbolic torch was carried through Juneau, Alaska on its way to the 2002 Olympics, Douglas Public High School let students stand on city streets to watch it pass by. When it did, Douglas student Joe Frederick unfurled this banner, "Bong Hits for Jesus."
I find it absurdly funny. I was not promoting drugs. I assumed most people would take it as a joke.
His school principal didn't. She tore down the banner and suspended him. Frederick sued, arguing his constitutional rights were violated.
He was a citizen exercising free speech in a public place at a public event.
But the school argues
it was a field trip where the school was able and did exercise its authority.
In this case, to prevent kids from being exposed to arguably pro-drug messages, according to its attorney, Kenneth Starr.
Schools should be able to put a stop to these kinds of pro-drug culture messages.
They disagree. As members of Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, they traveled to Washington to demonstrate for student speech rights.
If they are learning at such a young age that, freedom of speech is more a myth than a fact, then that is sort of a dangerous precedent to set for our country.
The court has long ruled schools do have rights to limit student speech, but Frederick's lawyer Douglas Mertz says they don't apply in this case.
The test is whether the exercise of free speech creates a substantial disruption of the educational process.
But what's disruptive enough to limit free speech? These California kids demonstrated against immigration policy last year. Others oppose the war in Iraq. Can schools muzzle those views? Some Christian groups file briefs here arguing that too much school power could prevent kids from espousing religious views.
The legal rule that's established is going to cover a lot of different kinds of protests that may involve student messages that are much more profound and are really aimed at some of the most important disputes in society.
Making bong hits for Jesus an important addition to First Amendment law. Gary Nuremberg, CNN, Washington.